Hello everyone and welcome to Swoosh English's live lesson videos. So my name is Scott and it's a pleasure to meet you today. Today we're looking at PTE Week 2 lesson number 5 as we go through some of our reading skills today. So let's get started with our lesson today. And anyone across the world, please feel free to introduce yourself as we go along. So as I said, my name is Scott. I am from Ireland and I have been teaching English now for many years. I've taught many academic subjects, including IELTS. I've taught Cambridge, PTE, EAP, and now I'm back here teaching PTE with Swoosh English. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone today if you're watching and logging in from YouTube or Facebook or maybe on the Swoosh website, wherever you are in the world. So if anyone would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so. If not, then we will just continue on with the lesson today. So what is our lesson about today? Well, here are the lesson content and aims. So as I've said, this lesson today is going to focus on reading. So last week we did multiple choice single answer. This time we're going to focus on its sister activity, multiple choice multiple answer. So quite similar, but also quite different in some ways. Today, we're going to learn how to approach multiple choice, multiple answer, looking at the procedure, strategies, how it's scored, as well as any tips that we can use to improve upon our score. We're going to practice some essential skills, including skimming and scanning, as well as analyzing the question, what the question is asking us, and how we are best to answer it. We are, of course, then going to practice some sample multiple choice, multiple answer prompts. That is what you're here for today. After all, is the PTE practice. And then at the end, you will have your chance to ask any questions and get feedback upon your performance and your score. Let's get started. So here is some multiple choice, multiple task information. How exactly can we go about the task? What can you expect on the day of the PTE examination? Well, what exactly is the task? This is a multiple choice item type that evaluates your reading abilities. It requires examination candidates to read, analyze, appreciate, and assess a short text on an academic subject and choose more than one correct answer. So while quite similar in what you have to do to multiple choice single answer, of course, the big differentiator between that and its sister exercise is that you need to answer more than one answer. So how long do you have to complete this task? Well, on average, you have about 2 minutes per task to complete every task in the reading examination. So of course, this is an average. You may be slightly slower at some tasks, you may be slightly quicker at others, but on average, if we divide all the time we have in the examination up equally, we would have about 2 minutes per task. So you're obviously going to read a nice long chunk of text for our reading component. How long is that prompt in words? You can expect a prompt up to 300 words. So most tasks will probably vary between about 110 to 300 words, quite a lot, averages out around the 200s, but they can be up to 300 in length, which of course is the equivalent length to PTE write essay. So we've got obviously what you have to do, how long you have for each task, how long each task reading prompt is in its word length. Now, how many of these tasks do you have to do on the day of the examination? There will be 2 to 3 multiple choice, multiple answer prompts to do on the day of the examination. So keep all the information in mind, learn it and study it as you go along practicing these prompts today, and make sure you're familiar with that before you start the PTE exam. So let's have a look more about the overview of this prompt itself and this test. So the reading test itself is 5 sections long, and you will have between 32 and 41 minutes to do this exam. Divide it into 5 parts: multiple choice, choose a single answer, choose multiple answer, reorder paragraphs, fill in the blanks, and reading and writing, fill in the blanks. They flow in order every single time from part 1 to part 5, so therefore you know what's coming next in the test. And what exactly do you have to do for each of these tasks? So obviously, keep in mind all this information in your own time, but we're obviously going to focus just on multiple choice, multiple answer today, because that is the task we're doing today as part of this live lesson. So of course, you read the text and select more than one suitable answer to a multiple choice question based upon the tone or the content. What's assessed is your reading, and what is the prompt length up to 300 words. So keep that information in mind and learn it, study it, make sure you know exactly what you have to do on the day of the PTE examination, and therefore giving you the best chance for passing it once you know all the components of it. All right. Let's get into our lesson today. So the first task we're going to do is we're going to practice our skimming and scanning. So what exactly is skimming and scanning? Well, these are both techniques that we use in order to assess information and extract key information. They're both reading skills that we use to do something relatively quickly. So what we do, they are the exact same thing, but we're doing different things depending on whether we're scanning, or we're skimming. So when we scan for the gist. What do I mean exactly by scanning for gist? Well, the gist essentially is basically the key meaning and the key information that we can take away from the text. Basically, if we could summarize the whole text up in one sentence or two, that would be the gist. So how can we make sense of the understanding of this reading passage in one sentence? That is what we're looking for, understanding and comprehending the overall meaning by scanning for its relevant information. Once we have the gist, then we're in a good stead to understand what the passage is saying. Once we've done that, we can then add to that gist by skimming for the key words. So once again, skimming is reading incredibly quickly, but instead of scanning for an overall meaning, now we're extracting the key information. So you're looking obviously for names and phrases and dates and any other key vocabulary that we can pick up. They may be names, they could be dates, they could be terms, they could be years, they could be percentages, they could be other statistics. Those are the key words. So what I want people to do now is I want you to read through this text, scan for the gist. As you're reading through, make sure you do it as quickly as possible and ensure that you try and do it as cohesively as possible, as efficiently as possible. Once you've read through the text, see if you can reformulate what it means in your own words and write down a sentence basically that conveys your own understanding about exactly what this passage is telling you. Once you've done that, I then want you to read through again and see if you can extract the key words. What is the essential information that this paragraph or these two paragraphs, this reading text contains? Once you have those, you can extract those, put them to the side, and then you will use these words directly when when deciding upon your answer for the sample PTE multiple choice, multiple answer text. So once you've done that, let's get into the analysis of our questions. So what did you get for the gist of this passage? Well, the gist obviously is about climate change and about how electricity in the UK is changing for the first time. Instead of using fossil fuel, it is now being fueled by renewable energy, such as zero carbon fuel, etc. It's about how energy is changing in its usage and consumption in the United Kingdom. So where do we look? Where is the information that we're trying to get when we're looking for the gist? Is there anywhere that we can extract that from? Well, often we can find that information at the start of a passage. So if we have a read of this first sentence, the source of power in the UK is undergoing a drastic change. That's a pretty good way of basically essentially summarizing the meaning of this text in the first sentence, otherwise known as the topic sentence. So when we're doing our scanning, make sure you pay attention to what is said in the first paragraph of the first the first sentence of the first paragraph. That essentially is the encapsulated version of what this passage is talking about in one sentence. So take a note of that. Obviously, we can look through more, but we obviously want to ensure that we are obviously saving time for the actual question itself. So it's probably not a good thing to read through this in too much detail to get our gist because we are quite time limited. But this first sentence is a good way to get an understanding about what we're talking about. And obviously we then skim for our keywords. Now I'm not going to go through this entire passage and highlight all of these keywords because there are so many. I'll go through a few. But what important information can we take away? Well, we have lots of numbers, percentages from zero carbon fuels, 75% of electricity from the islands. We can then relate some of these keywords to our gist. Obviously, we then have phrases like wind, solar, new hydro sources, government is keen to herald its green strategy aiming at helping the planet. Green strategy is also a nice thing to underline. 100% zero carbon power. and Theresa May government, etc., etc. These are the keywords. If we put these together, then obviously these serve the idea of the gist pretty well. But we want to use these keywords in our understanding because these will often be compared to the information that we're trying to get when we get into our question. So just to recap, the gist is talking about how the UK is changing its use of energy, and some of these keywords give some information about how it's changing its energy. And as we can see, there has been a reduction of fossil fuels in favor of renewable foods, green energy, and zero carbon power, etc., as well as how it's being conducted by various officials and people within the United Kingdom and its governments. All right, so that's what we want to do. Very quickly, skim for the gist and skim for the keywords in the time that we have for our prompt. So let's now get on to our question analysis. Here we now have a sample PTE multiple choice multiple answer question, and it relates directly to the passage that we had on the previous slide. So what I want everyone to do now is just to read through the question and the numerous answers, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. We have 7 answers in total here. So what is the question asking you to do? Have a look at this question. What is it telling us to do? Now, this may seem like common sense and something that really shouldn't be highlighted upon. After all, it's pretty simple to pick up. It does say, according to the text, which of the following statements are true. Why am I emphasizing that we should read exactly what the question is before we get into our answers? Well, essentially is because we need to pay attention to detail here. We could very, very easily not read the question correctly and then answer it the wrong way. So what is the key phrase here? Well, of course, it's which of the statements are true. We need to know which are true. Now, don't forget in the day of the PTE examination, you may have questions that ask you about which of the statements are false, which statements are not supported, which statements are true, what is the main point of the question, etc., etc. All of these sub-questions involve a different strategy, and we have to look for different information. So, of course, if we didn't read this question properly, and we were instead looking for information that wasn't true or false, then we're going to obviously highlight the incorrect answers. So that's why please pay attention to the question and ensure that we are doing. So we're looking for true statements from our 7 statements that we can use to answer in the prompt itself. So now we've done that, we've got our question. We're now going to highlight our key words. What do I mean by a keyword? Well, essentially it is information that conveys the meaning of the statement or of the sentence. So what information does convey the meaning of the sentence or the statement? Well, we're looking for a variety of words. These words include obviously our nouns, which could be our dates, our places, our objects. And we're looking for our verbs, which obviously convey the relationship between the nouns and the phrases in the sentence. We're looking for numbers, and we're looking for other phrases which may back up and give more information, such as adjectives and adverbs. The information which conveys the most information in our passage. So let's have a look at our first question, our first answer, statement A. What information in this statement can be considered the key words? Well, let's have a look. By 2030, the UK should have 100% zero carbon electricity. Which words convey the most meaning? Well, 2030 obviously is very important. We're looking for a specific date. We have the UK because we know which place we're talking about. We have 100% zero carbon electricity. Obviously, this is a very, very important topic because we know it relates to the gist. And also we have the number. Is this number relevant somehow? It conveys the meaning. So if we set all this information together, 2030, UK, 100% zero carbon electricity, we would basically have a gist of the information without including the other words. We didn't include by because that is obviously a prepositional phrase. It's not essential by itself. It could relate obviously to 2030, but often it won't. We have the, which is our article, which is not essential to. We could take a note of our modal should, because obviously some of the finer details might be lost depending on the modal usage, and therefore it might be quite inaccurate when comparing it to the passage itself. So we can obviously circle that as two. This is the key information and the keywords. What should you do in the day of the examination? Well, you should obviously underline these or highlight these either with the computer software itself or on your notepad that you are provided, so that you are able to easily cross-reference these with your answers itself, as well as the statements that are made within the passage. So what I want you to do now is, in your own time, students who are watching on Facebook or watching on YouTube, is just look through statements B, C, D, E, F, and G. Do the same thing that I have done. Highlight the information that you think is key and important, obviously the nouns and names, the dates and numbers, statistics, etc., and highlight them because you're going to be directly cross-referencing these with the information that you find in the passage. Remember, look for words which convey the meaning of the sentence. Try saying the sentence out loud. If obviously you can deduce meaning from the broken English of only the main content words, then you're on the right track. So now you've highlighted your keywords and your information, you can think very briefly at this point of our fourth statement. Are you able to eliminate any answers at this stage? Now, you shouldn't spend very much time a lot of time in this because this is something obviously that cannot be confirmed at this stage because you need to cross-reference with information that is in the passage itself. But maybe you might have a hunch, you might have some background information that you can bring going forward and think, is there anything I can relate at this stage? Anything that doesn't make any sense to me? Any answers I think just do not work out rationally or logically? So let's have a look through them very, very quickly and see if we can eliminate any answers. A, by 2030, the UK should have 100% zero carbon electricity. Do we think that's a realistic target? 100% zero carbon electricity. It is, after all, only in 11 years. I personally don't, so I would flag that one as a potential incorrect answer because it doesn't just add up. Obviously, we can't answer for sure at this point until we've done our cross-referencing. So let's put an X beside this one. Maybe not a good answer. B, electricity generated from the sun and water is playing a big role. Do we think, obviously talking about green energy, that the use of sun and water are very important? I personally think so, given that these are highly important renewable energy sources. Obviously I can't confirm, but my hunch would say this could be a potential answer. The UK government is committed to increasing fossil fuel production. Well, I think that's obviously quite a realistic thing to talk about, given that most governments in the world are starting to commit to decreasing fossil fuel production. But what is the UK doing? Is it increasing fossil fuel production? Now, some countries might be, but I don't think the UK is. I think a lot of the Western nations are committing to reducing this. So I'm going to put an X beside that because, after all, it doesn't make sense. D, zero carbon electricity production has reached its limit. What do we think? Zero carbon electricity production has reached its limit. Obviously, that only considers one aspect of renewable energy with electricity production. What about the other forms? So I think that, yeah, electricity usage obviously is something that is finite in its resources. So I'm going to put a tick behind that. I think that that could be a potential answer. The loss of jobs in one sector will be balanced by job creation in other sectors. Well, of course, I think that's very, very logical. People who are going to lose their jobs in non-renewable sources may then obviously receive jobs, or other people will receive jobs in renewable energy manufacturing. So let's put a tick beside that. F, the technological problems of the past will slow down future implementation. What do we think about that one? Will it slow down implementation? Yes or no? I'm going to put in a tick beside that as a potential answer. And then finally, zero carbon fuels are used in 20% of UK electricity homes. Yeah, we know obviously that it's still in the minority, but this figure is increasing. So I'm going to put that as a potential answer. So 2 have eliminated already from this brief reading, and 5 that I think could be potential answers. Remember, this is only my opinion. We still need to assert that whether these answers are correct or not when we do our reading with our passage. All right. Now we've done that, let's get into our multiple choice, multiple answer tips. So how should we go about this question? What can we do in our own time? Remember, this is highly important. There is negative marking for this task. Only answer if you are entirely sure, as an incorrect answer will gain a -1 score. This is highly, highly, highly important. Each question will be weighed by how many correct answers there are as potential answers. So say we have 3 correct answers, that is 3 potential points for each section. Now, every question we get right, we gain 1 point. Every question we don't get right, we lose 1 point. So if you get one answer correct, but two answers wrong, you get a score of 0. If you get two answers correct and two answers incorrect for a 4-question weighted question, then you will get a score of 0 as well. However, if there are 3 potential points and you only answer 1, then you get 1 point, which is still better than 0. So what I'm trying to say is only answer if you are entirely sure, because if you're not sure and get it wrong, you will then lose those marks. So remember, partial points is still better than no points. Remember that negative scoring for this task. The question could relate to the main idea or detail, implication, resolve, and even the organization. So therefore, what I mean to say is it's highly important to just study and analyze what the question is asking me to do. True answers, false answers, not supported answers, right is resolve, the main points. All of these require a slightly different approach, so ensure that you are aware of what you have to do before you answer the question. Going back to our strategy, skim read to get an idea of the main point or gist, as knowing this will help to answer the common main theme question. As well as that, of course, the understanding the gist will allow us to comprehend the overall structure and the overall context of our question, allow us to use some of our premeditated knowledge to possibly, deduce some answers or to deduce some correct answers before we begin, as well as it makes it just more cohesive for us to extract that key information and slot that in with the context of the gist of the passage. Remember to scan the question and all the options in the text, highlight them, note them, do what you think is necessary for you, because you want to be able to quickly and efficiently cross-reference with the text when you're answering the question. Once you have done this, read through the text to find supporting evidence for your chosen answers while eliminating the others. Remember, for information that needs to be true or false, supported or not supported, you need to find evidence which directly correlates to that. Obviously, you can use supposition, but that supposition may be incorrect. Therefore, it's important to pay attention to detail to ensure that we do find something that either supports or contradicts or doesn't reference the material that we're looking for. In addition to that, of course, when you're finding your right answer, you need to also see if you can eliminate the incorrect answers, because after all, if we want to get full points for this, we want to ensure we're answering these correctly. Therefore, we can only be sure if they're correct if we can obviously find information that supports the correct answers and also information which takes away from these other answers from being correct. This is our strategy. Skim, scan, highlight our questions, read through, cross-reference with each question at a time, indicate if they're right or they're not. Remember, you still need to find the answers which are incorrect as well. All right, let's now get into our first multiple choice single prompt today. As you can see, we have a 2-paragraph passage and we have our questions on the right. It is the exact same question that we have been analyzing so far. So we've done the pre-steps that we have gone through already. So obviously take some more time, read through the passage, and now start answering the questions. But you should have your keywords highlighted, obviously have an understanding of the gist of the passage, as well as some of the main points which are found within the passage. But please take your time now and complete this question. Read obviously the prompt which comes with the PTE examination, read the text and answer the multiple choice question. By selecting the correct responses, you will need to select more than one response. Remember that you will have 2 minutes in the day of the exam to complete each question. So you need to do everything quite snappy and quite efficiently. So 7 potential answers, see which ones are correct and which ones are incorrect. For anyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, please pause this video and complete the answers, resume the video, and we'll get into the analysis. All right, let's now get into the analysis of this question. Well, there are 2 correct answers overall here. The 2 answers which have been deemed to be true are B, electricity generated from the sun and water is playing a big role, and E, the loss of jobs in one sector will be balanced by job creation in other sectors. These are the only 2 correct answers, therefore making A, C, D, F, and G to be incorrect. And as I said, as we went through in our pre-question analysis, when we were predicting our answers, that some of these answers were obviously deemed incorrect or didn't make any sense, and some of them did actually crop up to be so. In case you run out of time and you want to risk the answer, then you can do that. But obviously, I don't recommend that you risk answering any of the questions if you are not sure of them at all. Let's get into our analysis about why sections B and E are correct. But we have some information here in the green text which directly supports B and E as our correct answers. Let's look at B. So electricity generated from the sun and water is playing a big role. The first paragraph, the text in green, directly supports this as our correct answer. Power from wind, solar, nuclear, and hydro sources is becoming the dominant supplier of power, it seems. So obviously, sun is paraphrased with solar. Solar is sun power, and water is paraphrased with hydropower. So solar and hydropower, referring to sun and water, playing a big role, is paraphrased with is becoming a dominant supplier of power, it seems. So directly is backed up in the passage. You will see that it's paraphrased. Remember, on the day you will not necessarily see the text as it appears in the question or the passage being the same. Often you will see some sentence reformulation or paraphrase terms. Please be aware of those and make sure you're able to quickly compare the sentences and the words to ensure if they make sense. What about E? The loss of jobs in one sector will be balanced by job creation in other sectors. Well, the last passage ending sentences basically back that up. Although some claim the jobs will be lost in traditional power companies, others rightly point out that new jobs will be created in zero carbon providers. So we talk about the loss of jobs and the creation of new jobs in other sectors, that are sector being zero carbon providers. So that directly backs it up as our second correct answer. Not much paraphrasing there, pretty similar to the question itself, but it still obviously supplies us with the correct answer. So that's half of the task done. We have confirmed the correct answers. Now we need to eliminate the incorrect answers, which of course are A, C, D, F, and G. Let's have a look through about how we can eliminate these as our incorrect answers. So A is incorrect. By 2030, the UK should have 100% zero carbon electricity. Now, is there anything about that which suggests it's in 2030? Well, let's have a look at our first passage, our second paragraph, first sentence. Many feel that a tipping point has been reached and the end product at some point in the not too distant future will be 100% zero carbon power. So obviously we have some information which directly correlates here with our statements. So we have obviously not too distant future, 100% zero carbon power. There's a bit of a correlation here, but does it directly add up? Well, no, it doesn't. The question states by 2030. However, the passage says in the not too distant future, which is a bit more nebulous. It's not exactly sure. So can that be a correct answer? No, because the statements just don't add up. 2030 is not the too distant future, and the not too distant future is not 2030. So they're not directly supported. They don't directly correlate, and therefore it cannot be put down as a correct answer. So A is incorrect for that. What about C? The UK government is committed to increasing fossil fuel production. Well, that doesn't make much sense. Why were we talking about the UK reducing its fossil fuel production while simultaneously increasing its zero carbon production? It didn't make any sense to me. And of course, there is some information which directly supports that in the passage at the end of the first paragraph. And the UK government is keen to herald its green strategy aimed at helping the planet. Green strategy obviously referring to renewable energy, deemed green energy versus brown energy, which is fossil fuel production. Directly contradicting that actually we don't want to increase fossil fuel production, it wants to increase its green strategy. D, zero carbon electricity production has reached its limit. So what refers to that as being incorrect? Well, there's actually nothing in this passage here which suggests that it's reached its limit. So there's nothing in the passage, then it cannot be deemed true, therefore it needs to be deemed an incorrect answer. Even though obviously it mentions UK Energy believes as early as 2030 UK would have reached a 90% mark, which of course still contradicts this sentence where it says 100%, but it doesn't talk about how anything has reached any peak in terms of electrical energy. What about F? The technological problems of the past will slow down future implementation. Is there anything here that refers to this? Well, no, unfortunately not, apart from this sentence. Previous technological limitation had slowed the adoption of carbon-free power. Now, of course, that part does directly support F, but look at the end part of the sentence. But these seem to have been solved now. directly contradicting that. So the sentence says, statement F says, the technological problems of the past will slow down future implementation, but it said it has been solved, so therefore it will not be a problem in the future, therefore eliminating that as a correct answer. And finally, G. Zero carbon fuels are used in 20% of UK electricity production. Zero carbon fuels are used in 20% of UK electricity production. Now, is there a figure here which talks about it? Well, no, because it refers to 10 years ago, more than 75% of electricity in the island came from oil and gas, while only 20% from zero carbon fuels. So even though we have 20% from zero carbon fuels, that refers to 10 years ago. This states now are used in 20% of UK electricity production. So one refers, the passage itself refers to the past, whereas statement G refers to the present, therefore eliminating that as a potential correct answer. But basically, that's what you want to do in the day, guys. You want to ensure that you are able to assess with backed up evidence in the passage your correct answer, while simultaneously finding evidence which backs up your incorrect answers before you confirm those answers and put them down. Also, of course, if you're not sure, then this is the exercise type which you cannot afford to second guess, because as I said, you will get negative marking if you get it wrong. You don't want to lose those hard-earned marks. All right, thanks for taking part in this prompt. Let's move on to our second prompt of the day. So we have a new passage and a new set of questions. Let's think about what we have to do. Remember, you need to make sure that you are sure about what the question is asking us. And what is the question asking us today? The question is, which of the following points are mentioned in the text? Therefore, we're looking for information which is referenced in the text, and we can cross-reference it with the passage. So similar to which are supported and which are true, which points are mentioned in the text. Once you've assessed which ones are true, then you want to go through your keywords of the questions, highlight them. Remember, your numbers, your names, your dates, your nouns, your verbs, your statistics are all highly important. Make a note of them and highlight them. Of course, then take a little bit of time and state if any questions can be deemed to be impossible or you have predicted them to be incorrect. But don't spend too much time in this. You just obviously might have a hunch from your own prior knowledge of the subject matter, and make a note of those. Once you've done that, begin your reading. Skimming and scanning, make sure you're extracting the keywords as you go along, comparing them with some of the text material of the questions, and also seeing if you can work up a general gist of what the passage means. Once you've done that, try and eliminate the incorrect answers and obviously state which ones are correct. Remember, only answer the questions you are sure about, because you don't want to lose any marks for any incorrectly answered questions. Also remember that you want to try and get down to doing each of these tasks within 2 minutes. Highly important, because you want to ensure that you can do every task of the reading exam in a nice time. So try and time yourself for 2 minutes. Do this question. Once you've answered the question, please resume the video. This is talking to people on Facebook or YouTube or Swoosh English website who want to do this in their own time and are logging into this at a later date. All right, 2 minutes is up if you've been doing it at home. Let's now get into our answers for this prompt. So which of the following points are mentioned in the text? A is correct. Technology has now advanced to a point where organic material can be reproduced. C is also correct. 3D printing shows enormous potential in numerous spheres of business and specialty, as well as E. Patients in need of organ replacement operations could be greatly assisted by these technological advances. These are the 3 answers. Let's go and see about how these answers are correct while the others are incorrect. So let's have a look at statement A. So obviously we're talking about 3D printing becoming increasingly important and how it can be used for numerous purposes. So A, technology has now advanced to a point where organic material can be reproduced. Let's have a look and see which backs that up. Well, if we look at the second sentence in the first paragraph, which is highlighted in green, it states, scientists now feel that 3D printing of body organs is not too far away with a new technique for bioprinting organic tissue. So that directly backs that up as a potential answer. All right. What about B? The need for organ transplants in the future. Oh, sorry. No, we're not going to go into that. We'll go into that in a minute once we go into incorrect answers. How about C? 3D printing shows enormous potential in numerous spheres of business and specialty. How important is 3D printing and how much can it work? Well, the first statement directly backs it up. 3D printing is rapidly becoming a major factor in many industries, whether it be in the present moment or relating to future potential, directly backing that up about how useful it is and how it obviously has a lot of potential in the future. So a lot of businesses are investing in it for its business practice as well as what it can achieve. How about statement number E? Patients in need of organ replacements operations could be greatly assisted by these technological answers. Well, if we have a look at our final green section in our second paragraph, let's read it. The major benefit of this kind of technology is the possibilities it offers to the millions of people around the world who wait patiently for organ transplants. Organ transplant directly paraphrases organ replacement as well as operations, as well as how they could be helped by these technological advances. It pretty much backs it up word for word with a little bit of paraphrasing. So those are the correct answers, A, C, and E, backed up with evidence from the text. Let's now get into our incorrect answers. So B, D, and F are of course incorrect. Let's have a look about why they are, let's have a look about why they are incorrect. Well, B states the need for organ transplants in the future will diminish. Was there anything in this passage which talks about how organ transplants will diminish in the future? Well, there's nothing that states it. There's also nothing that contradicts it. There's just nothing that references how organ transplants will in fact decrease. So we can therefore take away that as an incorrect answer because there's nothing that is referenced with it. So not given. What about D? The lungs are key to supplying oxygen to various body parts. So does it talk about lungs in any way in this passage itself? Well, we do have a section here which refers to tubes and vessels, blood and air, vascular networks, etc. But it doesn't refer to lungs. There's nothing that refers here to lungs at all. We're not talking about the human body necessarily. We're talking about these 3D printed organs. So once again, there's nothing which refers to D being a correct answer or incorrect answer. It's just not referenced. Therefore, it's not mentioned. Remember, keyword, it's not mentioned. Therefore, we can remove that as an answer. And finally, F. In the future, 3D printers will be found in every hospital. Well, is there anything here which refers to them being found in every hospital at all? Well, it does say that it is increasing with 3D printing breakthrough medical practitioners could develop rapidly, but there's nothing here which refers to them being in every hospital. Remember, the attention basically it's key to pay attention to detail here, and there's nothing that refers to it being in every hospital. Our quantifier here, we need to make sure that that's referenced. Nothing does say every hospital, therefore it cannot be a correct answer as it's not mentioned. What about finally statement G? In the past, it was the cost of organic printing that limited its usage. Did we find anything which talked about the cost of organic printing being this thing that stopped it from taking off as being incredibly good? Basically, it's number one use today, how it's been used as a very, very useful technology in basically saving lives and creating organs for people who maybe have organ failure. Well, no, it doesn't. It does say something here at the end, though. Traditionally, these organs need to come from a donor, but now they may be able to be just on demand, not only saving lives, but changing futures. That's maybe the thing that may possibly talk about it, as well as the development of these vascular networks having a stumbling block in the past. So stumbling block is an idiomatic phrase which refers to how it was a problem in the past. Does it refer to the cost of these things? No, it just refers to the complexity of making them. The science behind it wasn't quite up to standard. So this takes it away as a potential answer because there's nothing which refers to cost, which is the keyword detail in this passage. So there we go. A, C, and E are correct, and we have seen why B, D, F, and G are incorrect answers. They're just not referenced at all. Great. All right, let's get on to our final prompt quickly today, which we're going to do as part of our Swoosh English PTE multiple choice, multiple answer prompt today. So I've told you in the previous couple exercises what you have to do. What I'd like you to do now is see if you can apply these strategies and these procedures basically on your own without listening to my prompts and material. But obviously I'll say just make sure that you read the question, make sure you know what you're doing, highlight those key words. See if you can predict any of the answers being incorrect before you answer by your, I guess, your power of deduction, as well as any background and information and knowledge you have on the subject itself. Read through each question at a time, cross-reference the key words, see if you can define any of the correct answers while simultaneously eliminating any of the incorrect answers. Very, very important. All right, remember, time yourself 2 minutes if you can. For those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, you want to see if you're able to do this like you would at the similar rate you would do it in the PTE examination to ensure that everything has been completed correctly. So once you've finished that, resume the video and we'll get into our analysis. All right, there are 2 correct answers to this section, which is referring to people who get up early are able to basically function better in society, they're better at tests, they're more successful than people, etc., etc. The benefits of waking up early versus sleeping in late. So there are 2 correct answers to this section of 5 potential answers. They are A and C. A, early birds are generally more successful than late sleepers. And C, the tests were carried out by Birmingham Center for Human Brain Health. Let's have a look and see why A is a correct answer. Early birds are generally more successful than late sleepers. Well, this one might be a bit easier than the previous prompts because our 2 answers actually appear within the same section of the first paragraph. Scientists have found that people who go to bed before 11 p.m., aka the early birds, may do better in life, aka are more successful, than people who sleep around 2:30 a.m., aka the late sleepers. So slightly paraphrase, but the answer is there. Pretty simply, it's there, as it refers to everything there. Also C, the tests were carried out by Birmingham Center for Human Brain Health. The researchers are from Birmingham Center for Human Brain Health in the UK. Obviously, it doesn't talk about anything being carried out, but we will assume that them being the researchers or the people doing the tests, and the Center for Human Brain Health in the UK is the place that the test was being done. So that's pretty obvious there as well. So A and C as our correct answers. Let's have a look now about why B, D, and E are the incorrect answers. So text in red shows us our incorrect answers. B, there is no notable difference in brain functions between early and late sleepers. Let's have a look at that red text. All of the people who had MRI scans on their brain and did different tests throughout the day. The early birds said they felt less sleepy and were able to do the test quicker than the night owls. So we can talk about that being a brain function directly. There's also some more evidence within this text at the end of the first paragraph, which basically backs it up as being an incorrect answer. It states here, not even that paraphrased that much as well. There were differences in the brain function of early birds and night owls, therefore directly contradicting that statement. How about D? Night owls were able to perform better in the test later in the day. Well, as it says here in this paragraph, yep, they felt less sleepy and able to do tests quicker than the night owls. Does it say that night owls were doing any better during the day? Well, it doesn't say anything about them being able to do better during the day at all. Finally, E. Not all participants had to undergo an MRI scan. Once again, the first paragraph, it says here, all of the people had MRI scans on their brain, therefore insinuating that was an incorrect answer too. So this one wasn't even paraphrased as much as the other ones, therefore showing the difference in difficulty we might have in the day of the examination. But it's still important for you to read the text, read the question, and obviously pick out the finer details when you're making your assessed answers at the very end. So there we go. A and C correct, B, D, and E incorrect. If obviously you got those 2 of those questions right, A and C, you get 2 points. However, if you wrote A, B, C, and D, you would have gotten 0 because 2 correct answers versus 2 incorrect answers basically neutralizes your score. So please keep that in mind. All right, and we've reached the end of our class today. Let's go through now some